All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Friday, May 9th, right here on your daily fix.
2 months off.
Okay, so we were just talking off air. We were just talking about the hockey season of it possibly falling into March, April time frame of the Stanley Cup Finals, and so I was early springtime in my brain, and today's episode also is going to be about college basketball. So for whatever reason, I got March on the brain, but May 9th, right here on your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That's Jake Jimerson. This is All In Horns presented by Rogue Sports Network. Today's episode is going to be about college basketball. The portal is closed, and here is a final look at what the Texas basketball roster is going to look like going into next season with the first year under Sean Miller, and something that Jake and I, a little bit of excitement brewing for this Texas basketball team, because I've always said college basketball more than any other sport. I think professional, college, you name it, you can turn it around in a year, maybe quicker than any other sport. It takes one good transfer portal. It takes a couple good recruits, a coaching change, and boom, you can go from missing the March Madness tournament, winning 3 to 4 games in your conference, to being a top team in your conference and being a 3 to 4 seed in the March Madness tournament. And so we saw that a couple teams this year. Missouri was a team that had a big turnaround from
they
one
were
year
just
to the next.
winless.
Yeah,
in the SEC just a couple of years ago.
So with a program like Texas, I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Miller was able to take the reins here and make something pretty special out of this roster. So, Jake, we'll dive into what the actual roster looks like in terms of the transfer portal. What was a guy that jumped out to you that was like, ooh, I'm excited about this?
Well, I mean, it's the number 2 transfer portal class in the country, so kind of all the names jump out. But the name that jumps out for me is something that we just did not see enough under the Rodney Terry and I'm not going to try to pronounce the name, but Matas Voikititis. We'll learn his name at some point, but
Vokayatitis. That's
Vokayatitis. There's no extra T in there though. You're doing 3 T's there.
I'm not. Am I doing 3 T's?
Vokititis.
Vokititis. That's the last.
Vokititis. That's what we're gonna roll with for now. I can't wait to see how wrong that is. We'll need. But that's a 7. I think he's like 7'1". Was one of the better freshman big men in the country. Averaged 10 points, 6 rebounds, or 5.5 rebounds a game. And that's something Texas has desperately missed under Rodney Terry, because even when they had a top big man or two with like a Dessou, they lacked in depth. Texas is going to have a little bit more depth. They're going to be a little bit taller in general as well, because even some of the non-centers that are coming in are very tall forwards that are more of a power forward type, length to them and rebounding ability. And you have Tremont Mark, who's coming back, who's also a really good rebounder. So I think they're going to be a lot better rebounding team. And obviously when you got a big old 7-footer who's coming in, who is one of the, top big men in the entire portal, that name really sticks out to me.
No, Jake, I'm probably with you there. I also, Dylan Swain from Xavier, the guy that Sean Miller brought with him, 11 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, a couple assists as well, coming from the forward position. He's an upperclassman, going to be a junior. And so you pair that with a Jordan Pope and a Tremont Mark, and you've got yourself a solid looking threesome when it comes to the scoring ability. And then Matas also at the center position, he was in double figures on average in the points department at FAU. And so you've got 4 guys coming in averaging over 10 points per game. And I think we may have had that last year with Rodney Terry's system, but I think Sean Miller, his offensive mindset is going to elevate these players, not dissolve these players as talents.
Yeah. And you can tell there's already buy-in because I think what I'm most impressed with this roster when I'm looking at it is the retention
Mm-hmm.
job done to keep a Mark, to keep a Chindell Weaver. That's a huge, keep there, but also a Jordan Pope, who I think is going to excel under Sean Miller's offensive system.
I think Sean Miller loves Kendall Weaver. I think that was one of his favorite players. I mean, he mentioned it while he was at Xavier. Now, was there a little flirting going on between CDC and Sean Miller at that time before the first 4 game? More than likely. Okay, more than likely. However, him kind of shouting out some of the guys before the game and even post game, I just thought was a brilliant move to kind of keep these guys in and keep that retention. But it's not, I don't think it was just coach speak. I really do think that he sees the talent of these players and how they were not developed under Rodney Terry and what he could possibly and potentially do with the talent like a Jordan Pope, like a Tremont Mark, and like a Kendall Weaver.
Yeah, and especially a Jordan Pope, who I think was utilized horribly by Rodney Terry. Mark, they at least did get Mark going. He was kind of the key to them even making the tournament, was they figured out how to use him within Rodney Terry's system.
Use him as a guard.
But Pope, Pope and Mark's numbers both went down tremendously. As many transfers did who went from another school to Rodney Terry. Their numbers always seem to drop. I would be shocked if Jordan Pope and Tremont Mark both aren't averaging more in those mid-teens of points come next year. And so I'm very excited to see this roster come together, to see Sean Miller's offensive system, a system I'm excited about. And I know I feel like most of the fan base is pretty excited about Sean Miller for the most part, especially when you consider the reason Arizona fell apart was stuff that is now legal, also stuff that he allegedly wasn't even involved in,
right?
Or had very little knowledge of. And so
The courts found him guilty of no wrongdoings. So
yes. Not even allegedly. The official record shows that. So when it comes to the basketball mind side of things, the recruiting side of things, Sean Miller is considered an elite coach in college basketball. What he did at Xavier the second time around was even more impressive than what he did there the first time around, when you consider the fact that Xavier lags behind so far in NIL compared to the rest of the Big East. And he made them still a competitive team, took them to the Sweet 16 when they played against Texas and lost, and then had them in the tournament this year again. And a team that, took down some really good teams in the Big East during the regular season as well. And then also just watch their style of basketball. I have a hard time watching a Xavier game and not getting excited about what his skill set as a coach can bring to Texas with the resources of Texas behind him.
Jake, let's go ahead and let's kind of break down what this number 2 transfer portal class in the country looks like, player by player. We'll start off with the Xavier transfer, Dylan Swain. He's going to be a junior. Again, 11 points, a little over 5 rebounds, a little over 2 assists coming in. Then you got the big man, over 7-footer, Modest Voitadis, FAU transfer. I'm going to say that name. It'll probably be different every time I say it. A little over 10 points, a little over 5 rebounds. Also at guard, Simeon Wilcher from St. John's, that number 2 seeded St. John's team. 8 points, a little under 2 rebounds, about an assist and a half every game. He will be a junior. You kept Kendall Weaver, Camden Heide, a junior from Purdue, another big man forward, just under 5 points a game, 3 rebounds. And then you keep a guy like Nick Cody, who was a freshman last year, hopefully some promise in terms of his development. And then you also added one more transfer from Xavier. So 2 Xavier transfers. The senior, Lycian Terrior, did not appear in the 2024-25 season. He's a senior, but probably just added depth. And only there's only 2 centers on this roster. So I'm assuming the big man is going to probably get into the rotation. And there's a reason why Sean Miller even brought him along, although he didn't play in the 2024-25 season for Xavier. He obviously has something Sean Miller likes and wants to bring along to Texas.
Yeah, so that was due to injury that he didn't play last year. The year before, he averaged about 12 points a game. So for Lacina, God, these names, man, they're tough.
It'll be a tough go at it until we actually hear the names pronounced.
In 2022, the 2022-2023 season, he averaged 13 points a game and just about 11 rebounds. So he averaged a double-double.
So you're thinking
the 2023
he might be the starter.
In 2023-2024 season, he averaged 12 points a game and just over 10 rebounds a game. So he's averaged a double-double in the 2 years where he played full seasons.
While you've got him up, what's his measurables? What's he standing at?
6'10", 245.
6'10", 245. You got a 7-footer. So you're thinking you could maybe go Twin Towers if you want to play big ball, with him playing the power forward, him playing the 4, and then Modest playing the 5. I'm curious what the rotation will look like. Obviously, depending on maybe the opponent you're playing against, whether you want to go bigger or smaller, you have those two guys just rotating in and at the 5 position and not on the floor at the same time. But still, I think Sean Miller has set up this roster to where you can play small ball. You could probably go 4 guards on the court at one time, or 3 guards, a forward, and a big man. But you can also probably go a little bigger as well and have Tremont Mark running the point at the 1 and have a bunch of size filling out the rest of the rotation. And so I'm very intrigued of how he's built this roster and very excited for what's to come.
Yeah, and we're not sitting here saying this roster is going to be the best team in the SEC or anything like that, but I just think the style of basketball, they're going to be much less frustrating to watch than these last couple years have been. Even if the record looks, which I think the record will look better, especially than this past year. But even if the record looks like it did a couple years ago or 3 years ago, where they're, somewhere between a 3 to 6, 7 seed in the tournament. I think the style of basketball will be a lot more exciting to watch. I think they'll be a lot more dangerous come tournament time. I think this portal class is a great class, and the Traore is kind of a name that goes under the radar in a way, just because of the fact that he missed all last year with an injury. The 2 years before that, he averaged a double-double. Texas hasn't had anything like that.
Jake, here's another thing that I've noticed. Look at where these guys have come from and look at who the coaches are of those programs. These guys are all well coached in good systems, coming from a good coached program and coming from a good system into another one with Sean Miller. I think that was also another key. You've got a Rick Pitino guy in there. You've got the Purdue, transfer coming in, Camden Heide. You've got guys who are in good winning programs transferring to Texas, and hopefully Sean Miller can mold them into what he wants them to be.
Well, those kids have been around good coaches, so they're probably not just going to commit to someone that doesn't have them believing that they are to that level of coach.
Yep.
And so I think that tells you a lot about Sean Miller, and that's actually a really good point that you bring up. A rare moment for you, but
I do my best. I try whenever I can.
But yeah, no, that is a good point, because that was something I hadn't really thought of. But yeah, all these, they're either from Xavier or from a team with a really good coach where they've had a lot of success.
Yep.
And then you combine that with, again, the retention that Sean Miller was able to do at Texas. It doesn't feel like this next year will be a rebuilding year. It feels like they're probably going to be better, probably quite a bit better than they were this last year. Now in the SEC, that's tough with how basketball all of a sudden is in the SEC.
They could be a much better team, Jake, and have close to the same record, but just a better team with better potential to make a run.
Yeah. Now I think they will have a better record.
I agree with that. I also agree with that. But
that also, Texas's record this past year was inflated because they won most of their non-conference games because they didn't play anyone with a pulse. I don't know what their non-conference schedule is. I hope it gets tougher over time. But that will play into it as well. But when it comes to the SEC conference record, I think they will have a better record than they did this last year. Obviously, this is a way too early prediction, but still, we haven't really talked much about the basketball portal to this point. And I think there's a resounding sense of optimism around this team and an excitement for me to watch this team this year. The only reason I was excited to watch the team this past year was to see what Trey Johnson did. I wasn't really, I thought the team had potential, but I wasn't sure on Rodney Terry. I know what Sean Miller is has a head coach. I know that he has an actual offensive system and an offensive identity. And that is something that Texas has quite frankly just completely lacked under Rodney Terry. And that I'm really, really excited to see. And I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air.
I agree, Jake. Looking forward to it and excited for what this team and what this new coaching regime is going to bring to the table when it comes to this basketball roster and this basketball program as a whole, and hopefully can get up to a point. But in terms of the non-conference scheduling, Jake, there's no reason why Texas can't be scheduling Texas Tech or Baylor or some of these old Big 12 teams that they have obvious relationships with, and would love to see them maybe spark a little bit of a non-conference rivalry with Texas Tech and with Baylor and some of these previous schools that are going to always have good basketball teams and get you ready for the SEC and not having to play Chicago State, ITT Tech, University, and it's absurd to be watching a team down 60 points to a Texas team that's not even all that great. So, but yeah, I'm with you on the non-conference. I'd like to see a little bump up in the action as well. And hopefully, again, we don't really know what that looks like quite yet in terms of the basketball schedule, but hopefully that ramps up within a year or two under Sean Miller.
Yeah. And I know CDC likes to have some premier games in there with all teams in the non-conference. So I wouldn't be surprised if that ramps up, but either way, it's nice to have some excitement around this basketball program after, last year, a really frustrating year, and even the year before being really frustrating, just with the offensive side of the ball, which is so important in today's basketball. And so getting an offensive minded head coach was the first thing you and I talked about when the coaching search kind of started, quickly wrapped up. But we both said, get an offensive minded head coach. They got an offensive minded head coach. He has now crushed the portal, crushed retention, which is probably the most unexpected part of this.
Yep.
And have some excitement for year one.
The funny thing was, Jake, you talk about retention. I think I did a segment on our podcast after Rodney Terry got fired before the Sean Miller hiring when we were discussing it. I was talking about how we might not have a returning player from this last year's roster coming back. And so the fact that we've got 3 or 4 or 5 guys coming back. Big guys. Yeah. Jordan Pope, Tremont Mark, Kendall Weaver. Those are big time players that are returning, that are going to get valuable minutes. 2 of the 3 probably starters. I would think Kendall Weaver capable of starting. I would think that he stays that role of the kind of the 6th man coming off the bench. But yeah, I just think that this is a very impressive job already from this coaching staff in terms of not only the transfer portal, but also the retention of it. And so, yeah, looking forward to what they have. Jake, any other words, any other sentiments, any other comments before we wrap up the show?
Yeah. I mean, we got a whole football season before it, but my excitement is just much higher than it's been in a little while for this baskesketball program.
Unfortunately, since the Chris Beard, I was excited when Chris Beard was doing his thing, and
we don't talk about that.
It just was a rough patch, yeah. And now the trader is in Ole Miss, wherever that.
Do we even call him a trade? I guess some of the names that we'd probably call him probably don't want to say on the podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't even know what to call that situation. I just prefer to say that I don't like him and just move on from the conversation. But yeah, some excitement around basketball, which is something we haven't been able to say in a little while, but we have a lot more exciting things before we even get to basketball season with baseball coming up to a wrap and football to come as well with Arch Manning madness.
Yeah. And I can already tell you right now as well, Coach Sarkisian has a interview with Josh Pate, who is one of Jake and I's favorite college football personalities. He'll probably have a 45 to an hour long conversation with Steve Sarkisian. We will watch that and we will immediately give you our thoughts and discussion about that interview next week after that is released probably by this point in the week, this week. So anyway, let's go ahead, wrap up the show. That is Jake Jimerson. I'm Tanner Carlson. Thanks for subscribing. We're like 4 or 5 subscribers away from 700. Let's go ahead and just get there. And I would like to get to close to 1,000 by the time football season starts. I know summertime, it's going to be a tough stretch where, there's not a lot happening. However, we're going to be bringing you sports talk even throughout the summer, even throughout the dead
We're going to
period.
talk about something.
So it may not even be sports talk, but it will be something. We will at least fill the time with some sort of discussion, and it'll probably revolve around Texas. Probably a lot of Texas football talk over the offseason of just speculating and whatnot. But that's Jake Jimerson. I'm Tanner Carlson. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. We release these episodes 5 days a week, each and every day, dropping at noon. And so keep coming back for more Texas content. This is All in Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. As always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.